Thought about this. You know how retro Jordans are a thing? Why not do retro editions of classic cars? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Chris 2 Cents podcast, where your host, myself, Chris Stevens, is going to share his 2 cents with common sense. Hopefully, you all are doing well out there. Second episode of the week. I told you guys I was going to be more consistent, and I'm not going to let you guys down. So I was scrolling through Instagram, as I often do, working from home because I have the flexibility to do that, and I'm eternally grateful for it. And I stumbled across a podcast from Bring a Trailer. If you're not familiar, if you're not a car person, Bring a Trailer is this awesome website where they find old cars that people can trailer away, or in some cases drive away, and start their classic car journey with their new projects. So that's why they call it Bring a Trailer, because if this car doesn't run, but you want to try to get it to run, you're better off bringing the trailer so you can tow it back to the house. So they had a gentleman by the name of Matt Farah, who works for Road and Track and also has his own podcast and a classic car museum, which is a great gig if you can get all three of those. That's the life. If you're a car person, that is the life. And he mentioned how EV conversions of classic cars really don't they don't work, they don't vibe very well. And I was always very interested in that because there's a person that I followed on social media that has followed me on social media also for many years. Shouts out to Counselor Joe Briggs. And when I would post like these, I would retweet Bring a Trailer post for like old Chevy Blazers and, of course, my personal favorite, the Volkswagen Beetle. And Counselor Briggs brought this up many times before. He was like, why don't cars, why is it that it costs so much to get an old school when automotive companies could just do something entirely different? And I get where he's going with that. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Because also I noticed that Kenworth, the truck company, has announced that the W900 is going to be retired after the 2026 model year because of emissions issues and emission standards and component issues. Basically, they're running out of parts to fix these damn things. And I've always been a truck guy as well. Like the first job I ever wanted. Everybody thinks I was a born writer. I actually wanted to grow up to be a truck driver like my late grandfather, because my grandfather died. This is little family history. My grandfather was killed in a gas station robbery. He was working at a gas station 8 years before I was born. And by the time I was old enough to understand, I had heard so many great things about the man and that he was a truck driver. I was like, well, shit, I want to be like him. I want to drive trucks. My mom said I was too smart to drive trucks. I had to find something else to do. Now that I'm 43 and good and grown, I'm honestly thinking about trying to see if I can get my CDL just for the hell of it. I really am. Now, when you look at the world in this stage and it's like, you know what? You might as well do what the hell you want, because you don't know how much time we got left on this rock and in this condition anyway. But yes, I was deemed too smart and too intelligent to be driving trucks. So that's how I ended up doing this whole education thing and falling into journalism, which is still my love. Don't get me wrong. I've come to love journalism and writing. That's just who I am. But I originally wanted to be a truck driver at first. So Smokey and the Bandit was one of my favorite movies as a kid growing up because of that big ass truck that Burt Reynolds was being accompanied by on his bootleg run. And of course, Burt Reynolds was driving a Pontiac Trans Am, which is one of the great cars of all time. But his runner, the Bandit, because Burt Reynolds was Smokey, and his bootleg runner was the Bandit. He was driving this cool ass black truck, and I was good and grown when thanks to the wonders of research and the internet and all of that, found out that it was a Kenworth W900 conventional. Now, if you're not familiar, a conventional truck is one with the hood. It's basically like you got your cab, and then you got your hood and your fenders and all of that in front of it. And a COE is a cab over engine. They don't make those anymore. The COE has been dead for a long time because people have, the feds have deemed those too dangerous for the open roads, when it comes to accidents and different things of that nature. And it makes sense because when you think of a COE, and I'll give you guys a chance to Google it, just Google COE trucks. And when you think about it, it's just flat space in front of you. Like if you bam into somebody, that's it pretty much. I mean, at least with a conventional, you can at least, the hood and the fenders can cushion some of the blow, but a COE, there's no cushion. There is no cushion whatsoever. So Kenworth has announced that, again, that the W900 is going to be retired next year. And they also announced that there is going to be a legacy edition, a special edition of 1,000 trucks that will possibly cost a ton of money. And for those who want a W900 before the W900 goes out to pasture, this is your last chance. So all you owner operators out there, or you logistics folks that have your that can convince your bosses to go get one or two, this is your last chance. So coming back to what Counselor Briggs said, I find it interesting that a lot of old school cars still have a lot of loyal followings, but because they are internal combustion engines and everybody's going the way of the EV, it's not really popular to have those cars anymore. I mean, they're still popular, don't get me wrong, but people are wondering what the EV conversion thing is like. And that's where Matt Farah's comments on the Bring a Trailer pod come in, where he's like, it really just, it doesn't vibe well. It just doesn't work very well. So I've taken my thoughts on what Matt had to say and what Joe had to say, and I thought about this, and this is Joe's idea. Let me make this clear. This is Joe Briggs' idea, so probably going to tag him on Twitter if he's still on Twitter. Shouts out to Counselor Briggs. Greatly appreciate you. So, thought about this. You know how retro Jordans are a thing? You know how when Nike announces that the ones are back for a limited time only, or the twos are back for a limited time only, or Reebok with the Iversons and the Shaq and all, the Shaq Hypnosis and all that. Why not do retro editions of classic cars? Just something to think about. Because granted, this is probably going to be for the series, for the big money people only, but there's a market out there for the old style of automobile. I mean, granted, we got everything that's looking like a bunch of eggs right now, a bunch of misshapen jelly beans and shit. But at the same time, there's still a love for the boxy designs, the Coke bottle shapes of the GM intermediate A bodies of the mid 60s and all of that. So what GM, Ford, and I don't even think Chrysler and Stellantis, Well, he got a good idea with the new Charger. I mean, it's just that people didn't want to buy an EV Charger. I mean, you can't sell what people aren't going to buy. But yes, the big three, if they wanted to make some inroads in the domestic automotive market, they would offer up to date, up to code, modern retro editions of their best cars. Yes, that would be great. Like, can you imagine? And just for argument's sake, the box Chevy has one of the most loyal followings of any car that isn't considered a classic of any car that I've ever seen. And you know who's responsible for that, right? You know who's responsible for the love for the box Chevy. Black people. We do this. We love our Caprices. We love our Impalas. I mean, I'm still waiting to try to get to was it Donk Day in Florida? That's one thing I want to go and just be a witness to. Like, I don't even want to, like, if somebody wants to, if there's a news outlet and a car outlet that wants me to go to Donk Day in Florida, pay for my flight, even though I hate flying, and flying is dangerous these days. Yeah, I'll go down there and cover Donk Day for you. But yes, there's Donk Day. There's different box Chevy clubs across this country. Like, can you imagine if Chevy said, we rolling out some boxes with, up to, modern technology, like aux cords and, certain, I mean, CVTs suck, but if somebody wanted a CVT box, I guarantee you somebody would buy it. And all these different things that 21st century cars, like push button start or remote start or anything that you can put on a 20-ish car into 1980s, design. People would buy it. People would absolutely buy it. So that to me is something that I don't know if it's really cost effective to do like a retro edition of cars, but I can tell you now, if Ford made a retro Mustang from the first generation, if Chevy made a retro Corvette C4, C3, C2, even a C1, and if they did if GM went ahead with a Camaro Firebird Trans Am retro edition with either of the first 4 generations, and you give those 21st, late 2020s, early 2030s technology, absolutely people will buy. People will buy that. I mean, I feel like that's something that, people wouldn't be too opposed to spending money on, because I mean, let's look at it. These tariffs are really going to make cars that much more difficult for those of us like myself to buy. And if you're going to rebuild the public's trust in the American automotive industry, whatever that looks like, whenever this is done, if we've survived this, you got to figure out how you're going to get the trust of the buying public back. And people aren't going to want to see, oh, wow, I can get a Chevy Spark for $5,000 and look like I'm driving around in a freaking Tupperware box. People want something that cars and trucks are things that people bond over because of what they represent, of the era they represent, what they look like, how they perform, and everything on the road just looks the exact same. Car colors don't even have the same panache anymore. When's the last time you seen something in like a real bright orange or a sort of like royal purple, or even something like those 90s colors, like that fluorescent teal, like you know the color I'm talking about. It's like this bluish greenish purple that you would see on like fast food cups. And I'm not talking about like McDonald's or Burger King. Like you go to the mall and they would have like white cups with these zigzag designs on it. Would be like purple, pink, green, some color of blue or whatever. Those type of colors. You don't see those on cars anymore. Every car on the road, it feels like it's either black, white, or gray. And that's boring as hell. Cars used to have individuality. Cars used to have character. Cars used to have something to separate themselves from the other cars on the road. That doesn't exist anymore. Every car is the same 3 or 4 colors and the same 3 or 4 designs with the same 3 or 4 technological advances. So if you're going to have the technological advances, at least let people drive something that they feel like they can vibe in, something that's sexy, something that's classic, something that will get people's attention. Those type of things. It would just make too much sense. So if retro shoes can be a thing, retro cars should absolutely be a thing. And I would hope that people in the automotive industry are taking note of just how much people just can't afford to buy cars right now and just not going to overextend themselves and would rather figure out a way to just hot-foot it to work than buy something. Because if you want the people to buy your stuff, you need to give them something to buy. Quite honestly, ain't too much of that going on. I mean, Ford has tried with the Bronco. They're doing all right, but the Bronco has been recalled upon recall upon recall, so they rushed it out a little too quick. The ID Buzz. I was so excited for the ID Buzz, but when I saw that bitch with $70,000, I said, hell no. No, sir, no, ma'am. No, they, no, them. No. And it's so crazy because the original, the point of Volkswagen coming over here in the early 50s was that they were just cheap to own, cheap to operate, cheap to repair and maintain. And the original bus literally did everything for everybody. People used them as work vans, commuter vehicles. We already know about what the hippies did, peace, love, and all of that, and drugs and all of that stuff. And now you're bringing it back. You bring the bus back, but you bring it back. I mean, and the EV technology ain't bad, but it's not worth $70,000. It's not. I don't care who you are. If you're telling me that I could go if I'm better off just finding something in the previous generation of what you're offering for maybe half of that without all the bells and whistles, and I can still get to work and, go on trips every now and then, What's the point? There's no point. So I would hope that the automotive industry, not just the American automotive industry, but yes, Volkswagen, yes, Honda, yes, Toyota, yes, Nissan, yes, Mitsubishi, yes, Benz, yes, BMW, all of them. Everybody in the automotive industry needs to take stock of how these tariffs are just going to absolutely destroy the automotive industry in the United States. Europe don't care because Europe is smart enough to understand that you don't need bulldozers. You don't need 3 and 4 ton pickup trucks just bouncing everybody else off the road. You need something that is reliable, safe, and comfortable to get you from point A to point B. And because the roads are so narrow and the highways are that much better, and they also have working public transportation. Hello, high-speed rail, United States. We've been missing out on that for the last 50 years. Europeans and Asians, they can have fun with their cars because they aren't as restrictive as we are here in the United States. And that's why you hear people importing cars from Europe after that 25-year grace period is up. Europe and Asia, actually, just like, all right, you know what? I can bring this car that Honda and Toyota felt like we didn't deserve, and we're right because we didn't deserve them. I can bring it over here now because the 25-year grace period is passed. Or I can go get that European sports car that was deemed too hot for these American streets because that 25-year grace period is over. You might as well go ahead and keep that money home and offer your own retros instead of having people go to the JDM market or the European market. That's what you're better off doing. That is exactly what you're better off doing. So that was just something that I wanted to talk about this week. It was something that I've been meaning to talk about. It crossed my mind. I'm sitting here, on pins and needles about these meetings and these introductions that I'm doing later on this week. So I was like, let me calm my nerves and scroll through Instagram. And it was like, okay, so I remembered what I wanted to talk about for the second half of this week. So that's all I got. That is my 2 cents for the week. If sneaker companies can offer retro editions of Jordans, Iversons, and all of that, car companies can offer retro editions of their best classic cars with modern technology. You can't go wrong with it because people are always willing to buy and to spend money on a feeling, on a vibe, on a memory. Just do it. That's it. Use the Nike slogan. Just do it. And that's going to do it for this edition of Chris 2 Cents. Greatly appreciate your time as always. Once again, contact information will be in the description below. Still got a lot more good stuff coming for y'all this week and next. So thank y'all for watching and listening. Till the next time we speak, y'all be good or be good at it.